Hello and welcome to Shahkovic, where today we're going to be looking at the Euro 2016 final, which took place between Portugal and France. And Portugal are now the champions of Europe. Overall, there wasn't much to split the teams apart throughout the whole game, and I think this is the first time in European Championship history that the final has ended 0-0 in 90 minutes. This was easily one of the most boring finals I've ever seen in my life, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people agree with me on this. Despite all the stats and all from the game, it was only pretty much one moment of magic that split the teams apart, and that came from Eder, and that was in extra time. Now, not many people know even who this player is, and if you do know who he is, then the first thing that springs to mind is he's a Swansea reject, which sounds pretty harsh, but at the end of the day, he scored the winning goal. Let's speak about Portugal first, who are now the European champions, and deservedly so. I mentioned in my previous video that you can't really rule them out. They didn't do many spectacular things in the tournament, and that was pretty much everyone's question as to how did they get so far. However, they'd only won one game in normal time, and they'd only led for 72 minutes in the whole tournament. So if you look at those stats, it's pretty crazy how they managed to win the whole tournament. But ultimately, what the main thing was for Portugal was that they're very well organised, defensively very, very solid. It's very, very hard to get through to them. And they make use of the chances they get because they don't get many chances. And when they do get them, they try their best to score. That's not to say that no one else tries to score, it's just that they're very, very, very clinical if you look at their stats. The game had started as you'd expect from a final. Both teams looked a bit cagey. There wasn't really much going for either team. And then 25 minutes in came probably the biggest turning point of the match when Ronaldo went down from a high tackle. They had a bit of a clash against their knees, and it was obvious that Ronaldo wasn't going to be able to carry on. This was a moment where I feel like the whole footballing world sort of stopped and came together almost. No matter what you think of Ronaldo, you don't want anyone to get injured in such a big moment of their career, especially in the European final, where he can finally, take part and end that drought of his to get an international trophy. However, Ronaldo was subsequently stretchered off. I think at this point, both teams were probably thinking, what do we do now? Because France would have come with a game plan, and Ronaldo would have been a big part of that because he's pretty much Portugal's talisman, he's their captain, he's one of the best players in the world, or the best, depending on who you ask. So it was a huge part of the game. It was awful scenes to watch as well. He had to come off in tears, and it just wasn't a very good sight. This is where most people feared for Portugal because their biggest threat has now come off. So everyone thought, this is where France are going to take advantage. France can easily wipe Portugal aside now. However, as I mentioned, they've done the same thing they've done all tournament. They are very, very good defensively. Pepe was phenomenal, I thought, and so was the rest of the back four. And players like Renato Sanchez, they really stepped up at such a young age, at the age of 18. So you really, really have to give Portugal the credit here. Now, Portugal may have shocked the world with this result because everyone expected France to win. They've got to the final, they're the host nation, the fans are pretty much all theirs, the country's behind them. Now, what could go wrong? Well, it didn't really go for them. And as mentioned, Portugal and France both have quality players. France probably more so around in all areas of the pitch. However, the difference was that when it came to the big stage, Portugal's players probably stepped up a bit more because for France, I can't really pick a name that I would say that lived up to his billing. Whereas in Portugal, like I said, an 18-year-old stepped up and he's now become the youngest player in history to win a European Championship at the age of 18 and 362 days. Renato Sanchez was also named Young Player of the Tournament, which was more than deserved. He's really, really turned heads in Europe, and Bayern probably going to be very happy that they already managed to sign him. Now, the biggest shock of all, despite the result, everything probably came from the goal scorer, Eder. Now, he has scored more goals in this final than he did in 15 games for Swansea. Just let that sink in. You may not know who he is, and some people may still not rate him, but at the end of the day, he's become the hero for his country, scoring the winning goal. And it looks like he's going to probably move as well with clubs like Leicester City after him. Now let's talk a bit about France, because in theory this was France's title. They're the host nations, they should have won this. Everything was going for them. But it was far from that. And one of the biggest, most shocking things you can think about is that their best player probably was Moussa Sissoko, especially in the first half. Now that's no disrespect to the player because he had a really, really good first half and overall had a decent game. But just ask Newcastle fans. How was Moussa Sissoko the best player on that pitch for France when they have the likes of Pogba, Griezmann, Matuidi, all these other big names? Now this is one really big talking point. The big names did not perform at all. Antoine Griezmann's had a good tournament, and as you can see from his stats on screen, he's had a pretty good run in this tournament and he managed to get the golden boot as well. But he wasn't at it in this game either, and he missed a sitter at one point. And the likes of Pogba, who have been rated as worth £100 million, but if you ask some, he's not even worth £10 million from his performance on the night. Now, this is probably a bit unfair because I think Pogba was probably playing a bit deeper than he should have been. However, sometimes in the match, you've got to, take the responsibility on yourself to know that, okay, if something's not working, I need to step up a bit here. And even when they went 1-0 down, it was more so a shock that the French team had. And then people were pointing fingers at each other. I think there's been notorious pictures of Pogba especially having a go at Gignac, who missed a really, really good chance earlier on in the game. But I think he was probably just unlucky. Didn't really hit the ball properly. Deschamps has officially come out and said that he will be the manager for France at the World Cup, which you guys let me know. Do you reckon that's good or bad? Because I'm not really sure you can blame the manager too much, because at the end of the day, though that team was performing up until now and the big stars didn't perform. Payet is another one. He got subbed off. He didn't perform. Griezmann I mentioned, Pogba I mentioned, Giroud came off for Gignac, although they're more like for like, but Gignac was seriously unlucky not to score. But at the end of the day, the quality came from Portugal. It may not have come from the most likely of sources with Nani and the other players on the pitch, but it worked. You guys let me know your thoughts on anything I've talked about. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Did Portugal deserve it? As always, like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more content like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.